Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. It's the Last Thing Thrifted collab, where we transform and recycle thrifted and found items. I'm co-hosting with these lovely ladies, Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, Shelly of Repurpose My Way, Annie of Crafting with Indiana Jones, Jody of Jody at Southern Seasons, and Marika of Marika Creations. We're also joined by some of our favorite talented creators. You're going to find links to all of the co-host channels, as well as a link to the playlist in the description box. I have a really cool vintage Halloween moon for you, and he lights up. Let's get into it. So I have here the packing material from my neon light. This is a pretty solid wood frame that surrounded the sign, and this here, well, this is the cardboard from the top of the sign. I held on to these pieces for an entire year because it was just too good to toss. You feel me? Finally, I found a reason to use it. So the first thing I did was I took the cardboard out back and I gave it a light cover of black spray paint. It's going to be spotty because we'll be adding more colors with acrylic paints. I really just wanted to give it a little bit of a base coat. Okay, now that it's dry, we're back inside, and I'm going to add color by cross-hatching more black onto the surface. So you might be saying, what is cross-hatching? Well, it's really just a simple X-shaped stroke. So I just load some paint onto my brush, and my first stroke will be that initial X, and then I kind of just, as you can see, go back and forth, making more X's and going in all different directions, really. I'm adding a wee bit of water to the paint to make it more spreadable. Now, I do want this piece to be predominantly black, with just a smidge of the cardboard showing. That's why I chose to only do like that spotty coat of the spray paint. I want this to have a mottled effect. In the end, I'd like it to look like slate. So we're just going to keep going with the black until I'm happy with it. Okay, we're getting there. Nearly done. Just going to add a little bit more here and there, and then we'll move on. So next we're going to cross-hatch with some Ceramcoat charcoal, which is just a dash lighter than the black. It's very subtle, but I think this really is going to make a difference to get that slate effect. And our final color is going to be a layer of Hippo Grey, and this is going to add a wee bit of lift to the color. It looks very light, but when it dries, it'll be darker and won't be as obvious. But it really will add some texture to this. If I don't like it, I can always go back over either with charcoal or black, and that'll tone it down. Okay, so while that dries, we're going to stain the wood. I'll use some of my JoSonja Retarder medium to create a stain. I'll be mixing it with some Hippo Grey right here on my plate. I have a big puddle of the medium on the plate, and as you can see, I'm just mixing the acrylic paint in with it using my brush. I'll apply it to the inside of the frame first, and then I'm going to wipe it back with a nice soft cloth. This is going to give us a lovely barnwood color, kind of, well, cross between driftwood and barnwood. The wood is taking the stain really nicely. So of course, once it's dried, we're going to apply the stain to the outside of the frame. I do love this barnwood / driftwood color. It's a personal favorite. You guys know that I love a good vintage moon project, and I happened upon one I had never seen before, and I fell in love with him. So I cut out the shape from some basswood using my laser, and I cut out 2 banners. I want to say that this is totally doable using cardboard or foam core board, which actually was my original intention, but I didn't have any more cardboard on hand, so I did happen to have basswood, so that was really the deciding factor. But you could definitely do this with cardboard, foam core, even probably cardstock if you doubled it up. Anyway, I'm going to give each piece a coat of Ceramcoat charcoal first, as an undercoat. The moon's top hat will get 2 coats of the charcoal. now I'm going to give the moon 2 coats of Americana Bleached Sand. And I gave them very loose coats because I kind of wanted a little bit of that charcoal to peek through, to give it a more vintage look. I'm telling you guys, when I saw this moon, I was like, where you been all my life, bud? This is some kind of French advertisement or something, but I was captivated by him. So I'm going to pop up a picture of the advertisement so you can see what the original looked like. Isn't it cool? I cut the words "A Jolly Halloween" from vinyl with my silhouette, and I'm going to burnish them to the center of the banners. We're going to do a reverse stencil here. You know I love my reverse stencils too. Now, I could have saved myself the extra steps and just painted the top coat of bleached sand and then added black lettering, but I really like the look of the painted lettering, and the reverse stencil gives us that, but it allows for a crisper line unless you have a really steady hand. And sometimes I do like to paint in the lettering myself, but this is just quick and easy. If you don't have a vinyl cutter like a Silhouette or a Cricut, you can always just use stickers or other sticky letters. You can even cut your own letters from vinyl. Just trace the letters onto the vinyl and cut them out. I used to do that before I had my Silhouette. So once the vinyl is in place, we're going to pounce over the letters with Mod Podge. Of course, this prevents our top coat of paint from seeping beneath the letters, ensuring a clean, crisp line. And you can see here that I used the classic Halloween spelling with the apostrophe between the E's. I think it gives it a real nostalgic vibe, don't you? When the Mod Podge is dry, we'll add a top coat of Americana Bleached Sand to match our moon. I did give these 2 coats of the bleached sand because the one coat, I don't know, it looked too painterly for me. I wanted it to be a wee bit neater. While the top coat is still lightly damp, I'll peel away the vinyl lettering to reveal our lovely crisp words. Look at that. I love that. Love a crisp letter. With my 000 detail brush and Americana Persimmon, just like a deep orange, I'll add a small thin drop shadow to the lettering, right along the left side of the letters. So for this drop shadow, I'm basically just outlining the left side of the letter with the persimmon. And now we're going to follow that up with a white highlight to the right side of the lettering. So it's the same thing. It's pretty much an outline. I keep both the drop shadow and the highlighting close to the actual letters. I like to do this because I think it gives it a much more professional look. I'm grabbing my Folk Art floating medium and we're going to do some shading. My first layer of shading is going to be a very subtle, similar color to the base coat. I'll prep my brush with the floating medium, working it into the bristles. Then I'll side load with Americana Oyster Beige, scooping some of the paint onto the corner of my brush. To blend the medium with the paint, I'll stroke the brush on my plate. Blends it perfectly. Now, because this color is only a shade darker than the base, it may be hard to see on camera. I'm going to float right along here on the banner where there would be a crease laying down the shadow. And I flip the sign around and hold the paint corner of my brush where I want my darkest shadow, which will be right alongside the shadow that I just laid. And I'll float in that color. This will make the banner look like it has an actual crease in it. I'll repeat that on the other side of the banner. Yeah, see? I don't know if you can see. But it gives the impression of the fold in the ribbon. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm going to float around the edges, again holding the paint corner of my brush to the edge of the banner. So it's pretty much like an outline at this point. I decided I'll also add a wee bit of shadow to the lettering with the Oyster Beige. Our second layer of shading will be Ceramcoat Hippo, and I'm following the same path that I just laid down with the Oyster Beige, but on camera you'll be able to see this better, where it creates the shadow to make it look like there is actually a fold in the ribbon in the banner. I reload my brush as needed, and it's the same process every time when you're loading your brush. I'll feather out the hippo. I'm keeping my strokes nice and soft. If a line is too hard, I'll come back and stroke over it with just some floating medium and feather out that color. I want to pull in some persimmon, so I'm going to go very lightly, just giving it a slight tint. Very slight. This gives it a really nice aged look, and it's pulling in that orange color that we're also going to use on the moon. I've dampened my craft toothbrush, dipped it in some Hippo Grey, and I'll pull my thumb across the bristles to speckle the banner. I'll blot it with a paper towel. I don't want any of those speckles to run. I've been on a speckle jag lately. I think it adds a really nice vintage flavor. Right, so I sized and printed the moon's features to fit my cutout, and I'm going to use a piece of carbon trace paper to trace it on. I did tape the printed paper onto the wood piece, so that it wouldn't shift around. And I'll place the carbon right beneath it, and we'll get tracing. I'm going to use a mechanical pencil to do the tracing because the point is so fine, and I prefer that over using a pen, particularly in this instance because there are some fine lines. Always double check to make sure that you've outlined everything before you remove your paper from your piece. You don't want to have to try to line that up again. You know what I'm saying? Once again, I'm using my 000 detail brush. This is the thinnest, smallest brush I have, and some Ceramcoat charcoal to paint in his features. Of course, you could always freehand this if you're more comfortable with that. I did consider it, but then I figured it would be nice to show you how easy it is to just trace it on. If you don't have transfer paper, you can always color in the back of a piece of printer paper with a lead pencil. Just scribble the one side of the paper and place the pencil side down under the printed paper. That'll work in a pinch. I really enjoy painting these type of characters. I love all the fine lines. I just find it really relaxing, very meditative. Isn't he just the coolest moon? I can't believe that I've never seen this moon before. As soon as I saw him, I knew I had to paint him. I'll come in with the Bleached Sand to paint the highlights on this jolly fella's hat. We'll give his cheeks some color by floating them with Persimmon. Just going to go right around the edge of his cheeks so that it fades as it moves toward the middle of his cheek. Very soft and subtle. I'm also going to float around his lips. Again, I'm going to be very soft and easy-handed with this. Another thing that I really love about this moon is the simplicity of the color, and yet it has such impact. I'm going to shade in the crease under his cheek with some Ceramcoat Rain Gray. This is a shade lighter than Hippo. And I'm going to float under his hat and around the edge with some of the Rain Gray as well. I'll keep the shading really close to the edge. I want it tight, not really fading out into the moon too much, just on the very edge. Let's go ahead and do his hat too. On the hat, it's more of a highlight than a shading, but I'm using the same color. I'm using the Rain Gray. Once my wood pieces dried, I took them out back and gave them a coat of clear matte sealer spray. Let's assemble the frame. I'll use some of my TiteBond wood glue to attach the frame to the cardboard back. Once I have a healthy amount of glue on there, I'm going to align the frame as best I can with the cardboard. I used a damp paper towel to clean off any glue that squeezed out from under the frame. And I'm going to use some clamps to hold it in place until the glue sets. And then I'm going to let this sit overnight to make sure that it's well dry. I'm going to glue a few of those Dollar Tree cubes to the back of the banners to give them some dimension. And again, I'm just using my TiteBond for this. As I mentioned, I want to light this up, so I'm going to cut out a section of the cardboard so that I'll be able to slip the battery pack through it, which is attached to dewdrop lights. This way the battery pack can hang down the back and I can replace the batteries when needed. I painted this wood wreath ring and some more of those cubes with charcoal. We're going to use this to both hold the lights and add dimension to the moon. So what I'm going to do is glue 4 cubes on both sides of the ring. While the glue sets on the ring, we're going to head over to the frame and glue the banners into place. And once again, I'm just using TiteBond glue to affix the banners to the cardboard. I just eyeballed this, but of course, if you like measure, I always screw up when I measure, so eyeballing is definitely the way to go for me. I'll wrap my dewdrop lights around the ring. No glue needed. They're like a bendy wire, so they stay in place. I got these lights last Christmas at Target. I bought a couple of packs. These are always good to have on hand. I also like the fact that they have different settings, so they can blink slow like this, and then there's a faster blinking setting, and I think there's also a steady. Now we can glue the moon onto the ring, and once that's done, we're going to attach it to the center of our sign. Let's take a look at how it turned out. As you remember, we started out with some packing material, a wood frame, and a piece of cardboard. Both pieces were just going to get ditched, so we saved them from the landfill. And here's what we made. A fun, festive, vintage-inspired Halloween art piece. This has a classic, nostalgic look with a Halloween theme. I love how the cardboard back turned out. It really does look like slate. I think the homemade stain complements it perfectly. Love that barnwood, driftwood color. The subtle glow of the dewdrop lights behind the moon adds additional charm. The lights are very easily turned on via the battery pack that is readily accessible on the back of the cardboard. Can't beat that, right? I gotta say, I am really happy with this jolly fella. You might say, I'm over the moon. Womp womp. It was so worth hanging onto these packing materials instead of tossing them into the bin. I just love this. Let me know what you think. Please be sure to check out all of the host channels. I want to thank Dawn, Shelly, Jody, Annie, and Marika for co-hosting. Please be sure to check out all the videos on the playlist. Show everybody some love. You'll find links in the description box for all the host channels, as well as a link for the playlist. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time, up all night with Monica.